everyone, Jim Biringer here, NHLRumors.com. Please subscribe to the channel, like this video, comment below. We're back again with some more rumors. As we head towards the Memorial Day weekend here in the United States, I hope everybody had a great Victoria Day last weekend. In Canada, the Stanley Cup Playoffs are rolling on into the conference finals. Road teams dominating. On the road, Vegas up 1-0, Montreal, another impressive victory. But we got to get to the rumor mill. There's always a lot going on. Got to start in New Jersey. Let's start with it. Simon Nemec, the big story on Thursday, conflicting reports in regards to his future with the Devils. Again, it has been known that 2024-25 season, he wasn't happy with the ice time going up and down from the AHL. Made some comments to a Slovakian newspaper that were out of translation that said he wanted to trade. He didn't want to trade, but he wasn't happy and something he would revisit. Now, fast forward to this past season again. He didn't go to the AHL, but time on ice diminished. But when guys were out of the lineup like Dougie Hamilton and or Luke Hughes and or Jonathan Kovacevic, others, he stepped up. Brett Pesce, another one, played power play minutes. He can be a power play quarterback. He can score from the back end. He does have some defensive flaws, but what young defenseman doesn't? He was rushed along. He was brought in too quickly. He didn't allow his game to develop. And, again, the Devils' development wasn't the greatest for him. Similar with Luke Hughes and a bunch of others. Luke Hughes got the bag. He got a 7-year deal, $9 million. Again, I think Sonny Maeda is going to be smarter general manager than Tom Fitzgerald was, and Tom Fitzgerald let things linger too long. Sonny Maeda will not let this linger. There was a report on Thursday saying he wanted to trade out of Slovakian newspaper. Another paper said, nope, he didn't want to trade. As we've stated here on NHLRumors.com, going back to the trade deadline, while he's never requested a trade, before switching agents, he was open to a change of scenery. I do believe that's still the case, that he's open to a change of scenery. Craig Oster is the new agent of Newport Sports. Again, trying to reach out, trying to find out what's going on, what the real story is. But again, he hasn't requested a trade. He's looking for a new contract, probably a bridge type deal, maybe a Bowen Byram type deal like we saw in Buffalo. He's not getting $8 million. Sources have indicated, spoke with some people. He never asked for $9 million. Never asked for Luke Hughes money, never asked for big money, even though there were some reports that said that he did. He hasn't. The Devils are going to have to figure out where he fits in. Is he still part of Sheldon Keefe's vision? Is it part of, do they want to win now? If they want to win now, then they got to go get a piece that helps them win now. And it means Dougie Hamilton stays. But you can't keep Dougie Hamilton because you didn't. First of all, you had the situation with Hamilton all year. It's a bad look for the room when you have to keep problems around. It's dysfunctional. It's similar to what goes on in Vancouver when you keep players around that you don't move them. Dougie Hamilton was embarrassed as a player. They sat him because they tried to force him to waive his no-trade clause, despite saying, he was playing poorly. There were a lot of guys that were playing poorly that did not sit. So that's not the reason. They tried to force his hand. They tried to get him to trade. He said no earlier in the year on a trade to San Jose. Now they have to make that work. His signing bonus is paid in full on July 1st, $7 million. Once that's done, he'll probably get moved. And maybe a deal get in place at the draft and they revisit it after the holiday. So that's something to watch. But Nemec, what is he going to get? Some reports, FP8, say, some analytics sites say, he's worth about $6, $7, $8 million on a bridge deal. That's a little high. He's probably going to get like 4 or 5 on a bridge deal. Again, how do the Devils view him? Is he a power play quarterback? Where's he playing? Is he a top 6 guy? Is he a top 4 guy? Is he a minutes eater? There's things that he has to improve on. There's no doubt about it. But he did say at the end of the year that he wanted to remain in New Jersey. He would love to sign in New Jersey. But again, is it welcoming? Is the locker room welcoming? Is there a lot of egos? Is there a dynamic in the room where, some people say, there's no huge dynamic in the room. There is. You heard Brendan Dillon talk about it. Guys are saying, hey, who do we want to be? What do we want to be? How do we not get the message through? There was some, the brothers were upset when Quinn didn't get traded there. There's a different dynamic, and it's personalities right now. A lot of personalities. Simon Nemec knows he can be an effective top 4 defenseman in the National Hockey League. But he can get the Devils a price. But this is something the Devils don't have, so it's going to be hard for them to move off of him. But it's a decision that they're going to go through. Again, the smartest thing is to do a bridge deal here, and I think that's the thing they should have done with Luke Hughes as well. But again, I'm not the general manager. The general manager made a crowded blue line, poor decision-making, led to these problems that Sonny Maeda has to clean up. So New Jersey's a team to watch. Obviously, Minnesota Wild, we mentioned Quinn Hughes. Bill Guerin talked about a priority one outside of getting a center because they need a center. It documented against Colorado. They don't have center depth. Ryan Hartman ain't a number one center. You're not using Nico Sturm. You're not using – you needed Joel Eriksson in the lineup, and even there, that wasn't going to help. You either get a Robert Thomas, Vincent Trocheck, another elite number one center. You got Eric Johnson coming out on ESPN and Pat McAfee saying Austin Matthews should go to Minnesota. What's that package going to look like if he does? They need an elite center. They just don't have the center depth to match teams in their own division. Minnesota took advantage of a team that didn't have Rupe Hintz in Dallas. Colorado took advantage of a team that had no Jonas Brodin and no Joel Eriksson. Again, Michael McCarron did a fine job. Minnesota was there in 5 games. They played well, but they just didn't have the center depth. They couldn't win faceoffs. Colorado had 6 to 8 guys that could play center because that's what they have on their roster. Some of those centers are playing the wing. So Minnesota has to look at a center. It has to be a number 1, number 2 center. They don't really have many trade chips outside of their young prospects like Danila Yurov. They have some others. Charlie Stramel's another one. But Jesper Valtz says the guy going forward in Minnesota. We saw that because Bill Guerin said Philip Gustafson's going to have hip surgery in the offseason. I know he just signed that extension. That's a huge blow to Minnesota, who had great goaltending. So they don't know if he's going to be ready for training camp. And these hip surgeries and these lower body injuries for goaltenders, if you ask any goaltender, it takes them a while to find their groove again, especially a hip, right? Even Vasilevsky with the back surgery last year, it took him a while. It took him to this year to find his form back. Connor Hellebuck, he really didn't regain his form until the Olympics. So, again, the center market's there. The Rangers have Vincent Trocheck. Detroit's going to be on Vincent Trocheck. Does St. Louis make an in-division trade to get with Minnesota so Robert Thomas could go there? Do they look at a Shane Wright? Do they look someplace else for a center? And everybody's looking for a center right now. But they need one. And Quinn Hughes, obviously the elephant in the room, Quinn Hughes, he wants to stay. He's open to an extension. He said it publicly. He wants to see what Bill Guerin is thinking, but he's open to an extension because Bill Guerin traded for him. And he has respect for that. And they won a gold medal together with Team USA. And he's seen what this team can do. And he's the best puck possession player on defense. He led the team in playoffs, from the back end with 15, 16 points. He controls the game. But again, what is he getting paid? Is he getting paid $12 million? He's getting paid $15 million. We know the Wild have $17 million tied up to Kirill Kaprizov next year. What is his, salary going to be? And if he gets paid like that, is, Nick Foligno going to come back? What about Matt Zuccarello? They have a lot of free agents they have to take care of. Right? Yes, Matt Boldy's on a great contract. But again, there's something to be said about teams and $10 million players. Because if he signs a 3-year deal, as Jack and Luke and Quinn all thinking about staying in Minnesota, going to New Jersey, is it Detroit? Like the Hughes brothers thing about this is players want to win, but this bond between these brothers is pretty strong. We'll see what happens there. But again, Minnesota has questions because they need a center. They have issues, right? And their cap issues are a problem. I don't think they're going to go after a guy like Elias Pettersson. They could, but you got to sign Tarasenko. Bobby Brink needs new deals. Michael McCarron, Fabry, Marcus Johansson. There's not a lot of money for guys to go around. If one guy's getting 17, one guy's getting 15. And oh, by the way, there's a guy in Colorado that's going to get an extension too in Cale Makar. Remember, the reason why Mikko Rantanen is not in Colorado is because Cale Makar extension. So what's that going to look like? And does Quinn Hughes wait to see what Cale Makar gets? Or vice versa? The supposed 2 best defensemen in the league. Meanwhile, there's a guy in Montreal who's making less than 9. So he's playing well right now. I got to imagine Bill Guerin gets Quinn Hughes done. He gets a center. He understands what he needs. He felt like his team was a winner. He wants to get them there. Again, what is Austin Matthews' future with Toronto? This is a big topic of conversation, whether people want to talk about it or not. It was the same thing with Connor McDavid last year. Reports are he wants to stay in Toronto. He wants to win in Toronto, but he has questions about the roster. Can they do it? He wants to wait to mid-July. Chris Johnson of TSN of The Athletic says he's still not sure. He doesn't know what his decision is. And there's a lot of uncertainty because he doesn't know what the direction of the team is. We shouldn't say Gavin McKenna's going number one. The Maple Leafs could throw some monkey wrench into this thing. But Gavin McKenna is the presumed number one. They have the number one draft pick. That's something that the Maple Leafs need in a playmaker. They're open to moving some players. They need to free some cap space. They need to move off Brandon Carlo. They have some chips, but they don't have a lot of trade chips. They don't have first-round picks. The cupboard's not that full like when Matthews got there. And the guy that was there when he got there, Mitch Marner. I mean, the following year, Mitch Marner, boom, done. There it was. But, and this is part of this rumor video that's going to be an opinion. Because if I'm management and I'm unsure about what the player wants to do, I already know what the decision is that he doesn't want to be here. And maybe that's presuming wrong and getting into a player's head. But the Maple Leafs have to make work on this roster and do things. Oh, well, I want to see a center. I want to see this. I want to see a third line. Well, if they don't accomplish that by July 15th, what's the player say? No, he's not going to come to training camp. If the player's unsure at this point in time, the Maple Leafs should put the wheels in motion to reset this organization, move off players like Matthews and Nylander, and get Halls and reset this team. Because maybe they don't want to be here anymore. And start this thing over again with a foundational piece like McKenna. Maybe get some more draft picks. Do things the right way. Don't be a dysfunctional organization. Have structure from the top because there's no structure. Because, again, if they wait till July 15th, it's the same old Toronto Maple Leafs with the players doing whatever they want and management following along. It's the same old Maple Leafs, and that's not the right way to do business. Other teams would say, hey, guess what? We're moving off of you, whether you want to be here or not. Tampa, perfect example. Stamkos wanted to stay in Tampa. Tampa just didn't want to pay with him. We'll see in Florida with Sergei Bobrovsky. We know the team wants him. We know the players want him. But do they feel that there's a certain breaking point where they say, no, we can't go past it? Like he is looking for a Marchand-type deal with some term, but he's 38 years old. What is he going to get? He's got to take a pay cut. Again, said this on Rob Peterson's show. If it was up to Bill Zito, it would be one-year deals at league minimum with signing bonuses structure to help the cap. Does it get a 2-3 year deal done? Probably. Is it $6-7 million? Probably. That's probably where it's going to trend to. But they have to get a backup goalie. I don't know if Daniil Turasov's coming back. Probably not. Do they go after Jordan Binnington? Connor Hellebuck's name is out there right now. Again, I don't think the Jets do anything this summer, but if things don't change, Connor Hellebuck could be in play again. He was in play in the summer of 2023 before he signed. And here we are. The Devils went in a different direction with Jacob Markstrom. Could have had UC Saros, could have had Connor Hellebuck before they made the Jacob Markstrom trade in the Stanley Cup final in 2024. But he's upset because he wants to win. Now, some of it is on Hellebuck because he doesn't play well in the playoffs. Some of it's on the team, roster construction, and all that. But Mark Scheifele committed to 8 years. They didn't want to commit to 8 years. They could have signed shorter-term deals. They could have. And the teams would pay Hall to get Connor Hellebuck. Is it on Hellebuck? Do they need a change? Does the Winnipeg Jets need a new general manager is the real bigger question because Kevin Cheveldayoff has been there for a while. Probably one of the longest tenured general managers in the National Hockey League at this point. But the goalie market, interesting to see what teams do. San Jose needs D. Again, Bobrovsky wants to stay. Florida has a trade chip in the 9th overall pick. Some people think Victor Bjork's going to go there. They have Bennett, they have Lundell, they have Barkov. They don't need another center. They don't. They probably could trade it if they really, really wanted to. Vegas, we talk about cap issues with Minnesota. You got to talk about the cap issues with the Vegas Golden Knights. Pavel Dorofeyev needs a new deal. We talk about is Thomas Hertl and Aiden Hill going to be moved out because of the cap issues. Mark Stone needs a new extension. Carlson needs a new extension. They need to sign Riley Smith, Colton Sissons, Cole Smith. They need to have a bottom six to continue what they're doing. What does Dorofeyev get? Again, we know Pietrangelo is probably done. He's probably not playing anymore. Rasmus Anderson needs a new deal. They need cap. They need room to operate. Like, they gave up a lot for Rasmus Anderson. How are you not going to sign him? He wants to sign there. Feels like the contract's in the drawer, doesn't it? But if it was, maybe it's not done. Maybe Golden Knights are having second thoughts. Maybe he really wants to test free agency. Vegas needs cap. Sign Dorofeyev. I think most reports are he could get $8 million, even if it's on a bridge deal, which would be insane. But all he does is score goals, and he's been so effective. And you don't give up an $8 million player that you get in the third round. It's found money. It's found goal. It's a free agent you don't have to sign, and the free agent class is not great. Alex Tuch, we know, is the biggest name out there so far. John Carlson is out there. We'll see if he goes back to Anaheim. They could offer him a deal again. There were some things at the deadline with John Carlson. There was a deal in place with the Washington Capitals, but he didn't want to take less money, so Washington traded him. Washington needs a top six forward. Does Anaheim keep him? They're going to need to keep D. He was pretty good in Anaheim. Does he want to take 1 or 2 year deals to do it? Does he go to San Jose? Does he come back to the East Coast? Florida or Tampa look at him. We know Darren Radish's name out there. He knows it's part of a business. He'd like to stay in Tampa, but I don't know if Tampa Bay wants to pay him $7 million over 7 years to do it. What about, Alex Tuch in Buffalo? Their season ended in heartbreaking fashion. They want to get a deal done. He wants to stay there. $11 million going to do it? Did they get him in less term, get him closer to Tage Thompson type money? We know what Adrian Kempe and Kyle Connor and Marty Necas got. Cap's going up, but these good general managers know how to work the cap and keep players on reasonable salaries to build a winning team. Buffalo wants to keep him. Yarmo and Alex Tuch agreed to keep contract talks off throughout the season. Now they're going to pick up. We know Zach Benson's going to need a new deal. He's probably not leaving Buffalo. Did Michael Kessler get traded? He wasn't really used much in the playoffs. He was part of the Josh Doan trade. He's a really good defenseman. Again, the young players out there, right? You look at Celebrini, Bedard, Leo Carlson, Cutter Gauthier. What are they going to make? We know Bedard and Celebrini are probably going to get whatever they want in Chicago and San Jose. They've been talking to each other about what they could get. 2 young players, 2 franchise players, 2 elite players, generational player in Celebrini doing things that Sidney Crosby was doing. I mean, that's pretty elite. 115 points, second teenager since Crosby to do it, right? There's only been like 4 to do it. Crosby, you're on with Lemieux, Crosby, Gretzky. Yeah, it's pretty impressive company. So we'll see what those 2 guys get. One in San Jose, one in Chicago, both franchise players. Again, they're going to get paid. And, of course, we have to end with the Vancouver Canucks and the Edmonton Oilers, our favorite topics on here. We got the Canucks, right? Elias Pettersson, $11.5 million. He needs to start playing like a number 1 center. He doesn't really have much trade value. Yeah, teams called about him. Buffalo, we know Detroit called about him during the Dylan Cousins days. We know, with Buffalo as well. Minnesota take a run at him. The Devils have been connected to him in the past, but no one wants to bring on that entire salary. They want the Vancouver Canucks to take an L on it. They're going to have to eat salary along the way if they move them. They hope that they can move them, but not a lot of teams are interested right now because of what's going on in Vancouver, a lot of dysfunction. Do they really have a lot of trade pieces? Jake DeBrusk, is on a okay contract, not great. It's a contract that makes you go, whoa. And he may want out if this is a rebuild. So you can move DeBrusk out. Can you move Brock Vesser out? What about Thatcher Demko? He seems to be getting healthy. But 3 years of a no-move clause at $8 million. That's not. It was poor roster construction, poor contract management, and it's the same old Vancouver Canucks when it comes to things. And you have to get things right off the ice. Did they? We're going to find out. Was it Jim Rutherford the problem, or is it the structure in Vancouver? But Vancouver has a lot of questions about the roster. Who's going to be there? Can they move other players out, get assets that they need? Again, when you're talking about teams that are looking at Simone Nemec, going back to him for a minute, Anaheim, San Jose, Calgary, maybe a Vancouver, teams with multiple first-round picks to help the Devils out. Maybe they can restock their cupboard, use them as trade chips. There's Detroit's out there. Are they going to trade him in the division? Highly doubtful. Trade him out west, St. Louis. But you trade him to St. Louis. Now it's like a St. Louis type deal with Broberg and Holloway out in Edmonton. Edmonton's still looking for goalies. But is Sebastian Costa really proven? Not really, no. there's a lot of unproven talent out there. Again, what Montreal did, and you go back to it, took chances on players, but that's good on the scouting department. It's good on their amateur scouting, pro scouting. Florida did the same thing. The players have to fit in. And Edmonton continues to look at one problem, not realizing team defense is the bigger problem. Vancouver's got pieces, but do teams want to give up hefty prices for them? Is Chris Drury going to come off the asking price for Vincent Trocheck? Maybe. Maybe not. Where does the silly season wheel spin and end? You hope to have some trades. You had the big one with Noah Dobson last year. Then it was quiet. Again, seeing is believing, as my uncle always used to say. We're going to find out. It's going to be a busy offseason. The silly season is here. Stay tuned. NHLRumors.com got you covered. Jim Biringer, please subscribe, like, comment below. Guys, take care and enjoy.